Big weights going up to close out day 2 at the West Regional. Hi, everybody. Welcome back inside the CrossFit Games Update Show studios. Sean Woodland with Tommy Marquez and Pat Sherwood. Going to get you caught up on all the day 2 action across the 3 regionals. And we're going to start across the Atlantic in the Meridian Regional, where there is a great battle going on top of the leaderboard for the women. Katrin Davidsdottir and Annie Thorisdottir are in a dead tie for first place. Sarah Sigmundsdottir is 1 point back. Kristen Holte is the only woman preventing an Icelandic sweep. Turner Helgadottir has a 49-point lead over 6th place Carmen Bosmans. It was a big day for Katrin Davidsdottir, and she spoke with Amanda Krenz.
You knew that you would do well on the handstand walk. What about the snatch? Is that what you were hoping to put on the board?
Of course, yeah. I knew that I'll do well, but this is a very strong region. I know that most of us can go for a 1 rep around 185, so it's like, you never know. I was just focused on myself and what I could do. I was trying to not focus on what they were putting on their bars, and 183 felt good today. I was confident with it and happy that I hit it.
Did you lift that earlier in the day? Is that why you felt confident?
I went for 175 in the warm-up area, and then it was all like based on, this was my plan, and 173 felt fine, so I was confident going to 183.
Final day of competition tomorrow. What are you thinking?
I'm looking forward to it. I just want to keep doing what I'm doing. I want to stay consistent, and hopefully it'll pay off.
Good job out there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. Big day for Katrin Davidsdottir there on day 2. And we have a healthy Annie Thorisdottir who didn't have to come back from an injury this year, and she's getting pushed
by Katrin. This is a very different Katrin than we saw last year. So if you're new to the sport, she wasn't smiling last year. She missed her chances to go back to the game. She'd been there twice before. The legless rope climb devastated her. She missed out. She took 6th. This year, training under her belt, does great. After 1 day of competition, she's in 5th. And after 2 days, 1st place, tied with the 2-time champ, Annie Thorisdottir. Davidsdottir is back in full effect and now looking forward to her, finally getting back to the games. The toughest deal seems to be event number 6, the strict handstand push-ups. Last year we had strict at regionals. They weren't a deficit, but Katrin took 3rd on that event, so day 3 looks good for her.
In 3rd place is Sarah Sigmundsdottir, and I know we've been anticipating for a while seeing what she could do when pitted against the best in that region.
And she's showing precisely why. I know the gap is only 1 point between her and second, or the tie for first, but for all intents and purposes, this is a 3-way tie at the top heading into day 3. She had a 2nd to start off day number 2 with actually finishing that nasty chipper. She took her worst event finish of the weekend in 9th. But really, if your worst event finish is 9th, you're doing pretty well. And that's actually a huge improvement for her. She was 9th in the handstand walk this year. Last year, she was 32nd. So she's showing some crazy improvement kind of across the board, even attacking her weaknesses. I think, she's going to have a great day 3, and she's pretty much got a spot locked up.
Speaking of having a spot locked up, Joona Koski on the men's side was a man possessed for the first 3 events. He won all 3 opening events. He sits in 1st place. Bjorn Gudmundsson is comfortably in 2nd. Philip Yang Fisker occupies that 5th and final spot. He's got a 34-point lead over Phil Hesketh. In 4th place is Stephen Fawcett. He's trying to make a little history here.
Yeah, Stephen Fawcett. He actually won the Open out in Europe. He was the first British male to do that, to win the Open, and now he's trying to become the first British male to qualify for the CrossFit Games. And he started off the day inside the top 5, but then he comes back with a 5th, a 3rd, and a 13th. Very similar to Sigmundsdottir. Last year, he was 29th in the handstand walk. This year, he's 3rd, so he clearly worked on some of his weaknesses, and it set him up nicely to possibly punch his ticket to Carson for the very first time.
Some guys are trying to make their way up the leaderboard, one of whom is Frederick Agidius, a Games veteran, sits in 10th. He's got to make up 62 points over 2 events.
Man, he's in a bit of hot water, not where he wants to be going into day 3. This is a guy who's been to the Games twice before and was so close last year. At the European Regionals, he took 4th place and just missed going back to the Games. We thought this might be his year, but it's not a sure thing. So 62 points out of a qualifying spot. Day 2 didn't go how he needed to. And once again, looking to those strict handstand push-ups, last year he took 5th on that event. So day 3, man, he needs to show up big time.
And finally, the team competition in the Meridian Regional. CrossFit Yas trying to go pretty much wire to wire here. They won the first 3 events just like Joona Koski did. 12 points separate 2nd from 4th, and then just 15 points separate 5th from 8th. So a lot to be decided in the final 2 events in the Meridian Regional on Sunday. Let's head to the central competition where the big news of the day happened in this regional, and that is Julie Foucher suffering what appears to be a partially torn Achilles tendon in her right leg. It happened in event number 3 on the box jumps. She spoke to us after that event. She was obviously very emotional. She says even though she knows that she's done, she still wants to try and compete.
I mean, I kind of want to just do as much as I can just for fun. Sorry. Just because, like, I know it's my last time I'm going to be out there. So I want to just do as much as I can. But I don't think the snatch is going to happen. I don't think the cleans are going to happen. So we'll just see what I can do. This is my last season. Anyways, it's not really how I wanted it to go, how I wanted to end it, but I don't really have a choice, and you can't just like keep going just because you had, you know, something happen. I gave it my all. I couldn't really change anything, and this is just how it's going to end, I guess.
It's hard to watch. You know, Julie Foucher, understandably, very upset about that. She did get out on the floor and compete in event 4 and then in event 5. And we talked about this earlier, Tommy, and I think you put it the best here, is that she wanted it to end on her terms, not being injured and having to limp off the floor.
And really, that's the kind of testament to what kind of athlete Julie is. You know, many people would say, and there's probably going to be tons of debate about this, whether or not she should have taken the floor for the 4th and 5th event. She maybe should have just packed it in for the day. But you know what? She's an athlete. She loves this sport. She knows that what she can do on the floor is a representation of the hard work and effort she puts in on a daily basis. And she still wanted to go out and express that and maybe put on a little bit of a show for the fans. And she took 11th on the handstand walk. That's huge.
I don't think anybody sitting on the sidelines at home on the internet really chime in on this at all. They're pretty tame. I'm sure Julie's heartbroken. I mean, of course, in her final year, but even through the tears, I mean, she needs to know that this, you know, she's not quitting.
Right.
I mean, she's given us year after year of incredible competition. She's one of the most ferocious and well-respected female competitors out there, and she's leaving a legacy in the sport. She stood on the podium multiple times. I mean, Julie Foucher is not going anywhere as far as the fans' hearts.
Yeah, and if you're in total denial about the situation like I am, and you are still holding out hope that maybe Foucher can compete and possibly get to the games, here's what she would have to do. She currently sits in 4th place. She would need to average an 11th place finish on the 2 remaining events. Event 6 might be doable for her, but event 7, when those cleans come in, you heard her say herself, she doesn't think that that's going to happen. So, you know, best of luck to Julie Foucher, and you know, we're certainly going to miss seeing her compete at the games if that's what happens. The leaderboard now for the Central Women's Competition has a 19-year-old rookie on top of it. That is Brooke Wells, who leads by 20 over Elizabeth Akinwale. Stacey Tovar currently sits in 5th place. She's 20 up on Lindy Barber and 22 points up on Sheila Barden. Brooke Wells has had one finish lower than 4th, and again, she's 19 years old.
Really, that was one small hiccup in Tommy V where she took 26th. Every other event finish has been inside the top 5, and I could not be more impressed with this 19-year-old first-time competitor at the regionals. You know, just taking the placements aside and looking at some of the things she's done, she finished the handstand walk in 1:48, and then she snatched 186 pounds. I know a lot of dudes that can't do that, and she's a 19-year-old girl sitting in 1st place in a stacked Central Regional after 5 events. I mean, I'm impressed.
Elizabeth Akinwale currently sits in 2nd. She made a huge jump up the leaderboard, 10 spots to be exact there over those final 2 events.
Don't discount the salty veterans, man. They are there to compete, and Elizabeth Akinwale had a great day 1. When it was all said and done, she was in 3rd place entering day 2. Event number 3 didn't go how we wanted it to, and she dropped all the way to 12th. But hey, there was some handstand walking left. There was 196 pounds that needed to be snatched real quick, and she took a second, and all of a sudden she wasn't in 12th anymore, and going into day 3, she is in 2nd place in that region. And, I mean, she's poised very well to move forward. The only thing I'm worried about, it's not the muscle-ups and the barbells on Event 7. It's those strict deficit handstand pushes. But I'm sure she'll have a plan, and she'll execute it.
On the men's side of the house in the Central Regional, we kind of thought this would be a Central East show, and Scott Panchik was going to run away with it. Well, Panchik currently sits in second, but a man from the North Central, Jacob Hepner, has a 29-point lead on him for that top spot. Big Sam Dancer sits in third. Graham Holmberg's in fifth. He's 23 points up on Duke Burke, but the top 10 are still alive here in the Central Regional over these final two events. And Sam Dancer came into this regional as somewhat of an anomaly. We knew the guy was beastly strong, but we didn't know what else he could do, and he certainly made a believer out of a lot of people.
I would have lost buckets and buckets of money on betting on how Dancer would be at the end of each day. I mean, even once the camera clicks off and we go and chat about the show, I'm like, how is Dancer still doing as well as he is? He's impressing me to death. At the end of day one, he was in fourth place. I thought that he was going to crash and burn on Tommy V, but he did great. Shows up on day two and takes 6 on that grueling chipper on event number 3, showing that the big man has lungs, he has an engine, he can go long, and he can even walk on his hands a little bit. Not his best event, took 33rd, but then the barbell came out, snatched 275 pounds, sits in third place, actually improved his position at the end of day 2. But he's going to have a tough day 3, I'll tell you what, if he's going to stay in the top 5, because he's being chased by Holmberg, Alex Anderson, Nick Uranker, Forey, Bank. I mean, that region is still deep out there.
And Scott Panchik, who we thought would be on top of the leaderboard, at least at this point of the competition,
taking his time.
But still, he's in a really good spot as far as getting to the CrossFit Games.
He's in a great spot, and it's very easy to look at the leaderboard and see him in second and think he's underperforming. But really, if you take it a step further and look at how he's done as a whole, he finished the day strong with a fourth in the handstand and a third in the snatch. And then taking a look at everybody on the leaderboard, he's the only male athlete in the Central East to have all of his event finishes inside the top 10. Nobody else can say that.
Yeah.
And Scott has some bigger goals in mind than just making it or standing on top of the regional podium. This is the type of blueprint in terms of all top 10 finishes that you have to actually win the CrossFit Games, and he's one of the athletes who has his sights set on that.
In the team competition, paid a lot of attention to this one because Rich Froning is on that CrossFit Mayhem team. Right now, they sit in fourth place. CrossFit 417 is pulling away. They had a third, a first, and a seventh today. CrossFit Kilo is in fifth. They're 26 points up on CrossFit Grandview. Timberwolf CrossFit and On Track are still alive, as is Coda, but they're going to need some help on that final day. But CrossFit Mayhem's day got off to a really bad start.
Yeah, I wouldn't say really bad, but it was a little bit shakier than they expected. Now, Event 3 was something they were coming in expecting to maybe set an event record and beat out NorCal for that event, but they ran into a hiccup. Their final female athlete got stuck on her set of 30 wall balls and was actually getting no rep. And you'll see in the background that James Hobart was just stuck sitting on the true form. Finally was able to finish it out for his team, but it cost them 5 placings, 22 points. They're in fourth, but that 22 points would have bumped them up into second. Clearly a frustrating situation for them.
And it's easy for us to sit here, and razz the team a little bit because it's the champ. And there was just so much hype coming in with NorCal. And I'm sure Rich Froning would prefer for his team to be up in the number 1 spot. But let's not forget, experience goes so far. Yeah. Day number 3, you're going to need that on a smart strategy on event number 7. And, I mean, just between Froning and James Hobart, their games appearances are in the double digits. And then all the 3 women have either competed on a team or been an individual qualifier. They got Matt Hewitt. So this team's deep, and I think they could shine on the final 2 events.
Yeah, and again, no one cares where you finish in your regional when you get to Carson. It doesn't matter. Exactly. It's just about getting to Southern California. Let's get out to the West, where the individuals just wrapped up competition. We start on the women's side, where Emily Abbott leads by 30, or this is the men's leaderboard, where Brent Fikowski has taken the lead. We'll update the women's scores right now, but Emily Abbott sits atop the leaderboard. She has a 30-point lead over Carlene Matthews. Alex Parker will sit in third place, and Caitlin Ritchie's trying to hold off Emily Morris, Games veteran Reagan Huckabee, and Jen Weber. So a lot of women still trying to vie for one of those 5 spots. Emily Abbott spoke with Mike Arsenault following day 2.
Emily, first place after day 1, first place after day 2. How would you rate your performance so far? Are you happy with where you are?
I knew today was probably going to be my biggest struggle. Handstand walks are not my forte. But you know what? I'm proud of myself for getting through that as much as I could, and it was such a battle today, and I knew that coming in. So I'm just so excited to rest, eat a bunch of food tonight, and go attack it again tomorrow.
So let's talk about events 4 and 5. On event 4, as you mentioned, not your strong suit. You kind of let that one go, punted it down the road a little bit. How hard was your heart beating when you missed your first snatch and you really had to make sure you hit that second one?
It happened to me a couple times in practice, and I know that if I miss that first one, I'm sure as hell getting that second one. So.
And you did just that. Emily Abbott, first place after 2 days of competition, 2 more events to go.
Thank you, Mike. And Emily Abbott is trying to go wire to wire here on top of the leaderboard.
I mean, shy of a stumble on the handstand where she took 18th. Everything else has been a top 10 finish, incredibly consistent across the board, leading after the end of day 1, leading at the end of day 2. She went to the games last year where she took 35th. And again, looking forward to day 3. Since she went to the games last year, we can compare her to that push-pull event, which had not just strict handstand pushes, but with a deficit. Mm-hmm. She took 39th, which you might be like, oh, 39th isn't that great, but that's 39th at the games with the best in the world, so I think she'll do just fine in her region.
In 4th place, we have Jessica Core. She sits there by 12 points over Caitlin Ritchie, and she's certainly no stranger to being at the CrossFit Games.
Yeah, oddly enough, amongst all these athletes, she might be the most experienced athlete on the floor. She's a 5-time Games veteran, primarily because she went to the Games with CrossFit Vancouver's Games qualifying team 5 years in a row. But she had a great day, too. She completed the trifecta with going 6th, 6th, and 3rd, 3 top 10 finishes on day number 2. She's the only athlete in the top 5 to do that. So she set herself up nicely to make a 6th CrossFit Games appearance, but for the first time as an individual, which would be a huge accomplishment.
On the men's side of the West Regional, Brent Fikowski now sits atop the leaderboard with 431 points. Tyson Takasaki, Lucas Parker, Joe Scally, and then Cole Sager, the lone American in the top 5. Sager with that event record on Tommy V on Friday, but he's only up by 4 points on Mitch Barnard. Kevin Simons is still alive as well, and Cody Anderson sits in 8th place. He's trying to make a return trip to the games as well. But Brent Fikowski, after a big day 2, spoke with Mike Arsenault.
Well, all day long, we've been calling Saturday a moving day here at the West Regional, and no one moved higher than Brent Fikowski. You started the day not on top. Now you are as we head into the 3rd day. What do you think about your position?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy. If you told me on Thursday I'd be first going into the final day, I think I'd be pretty happy. So, yeah, I'm just really proud of how I performed on all the events. I don't think I really could have done any better in any of them. So that's all you can control. So I'm really happy.
Now you're able to set up your own weights for event number 5. Was there any part of you who wanted to push a little bit higher, knowing that some big boys were lifting some big weight in the heat before you and during your heat as well?
Oh yeah, I mean this is a big mental game. I knew I was going to hit in the 260 range. I heard in the previous heat that one of my buddies, Terrence Limbert, hit 261, and I thought, okay, I'll go for 262, and sure enough, someone else hit, I think, 260, so just that 2 extra pounds gave me an extra couple points. So yeah, it pretty much, I couldn't have went much higher. I think 270 would have been too heavy, and so yeah, I'm happy. It's good.
Last question, how's the body feel as we head into day 3?
Pretty good. I'm tired. I'm going to need a big sleep tonight. Overall, all right. Shoulder's a bit sore, but, you know, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
We'll let you get to that rest and recuperation as we await day 3 on Sunday.
Thanks, Mike and Tommy. You said, Brent Fikowski was going to do some damage on event 3, and he goes out and wins it, and it set him up for a really good day 2.
Yeah, and it puts him, I guess, on the mountain by himself because he's the only athlete to finish last year's 50s chipper and the chipper from this year as well. He starts off the day with a 1st place, then he follows it up with an 8th place in the handstand walk and a 5th place, and more importantly, he was ahead of Lucas Parker in both of those events, who was Lucas, the only guy within striking distance at the time. And so he ends day number 2 in 1st place overall, and it's really a nice comeback year after narrowly missing out on the games when he was in a qualifying spot, kind of bombed out on event 7, and now I think he's basically done enough to kind of make sure that's not going to happen this year.
You mentioned Lucas Parker. Right now he sits in 3rd place. He has a 16-point lead over Joe Scally. He did pretty well today, but kind of flirted with disaster there in that final event.
He did, but I mean, he's having himself a great regionals, all top 10 finishes, and what was a little nerve-wracking, if you will, was the snatch event where he loaded up the bar, 257 pounds. You've got a small window of time to hit it. He failed his first attempt, failed his second one, luckily wind up hitting it and kept himself in a good position. But with all top 10 finishes, leading at the end of day 1 and now at the end of day 2, finding himself in third, this 4 times games veteran is poised very well to once again make his way back. Last year at the CrossFit Games, he took 28th on that workout that had strict deficit handstand push-ups, very similar with they'll face in Event 6. And so he's got muscle-ups. I think Event 7 is going to be fine for him. So I say Lucas is, we'll see him in Carson again.
Finally, for the teams, we're headed for a very exciting finish over the final 2 events for them. Verdant Green currently sits atop the leaderboard by 3 points over CrossFit Fort Vancouver. But after that, it's extremely tight. 421 for CrossFit Marysville. They're only 14 up on lane 5, and then spots 5 through 8 are separated by just 7 points. We could see some titanic shakeups here over these final 2 events.
If you asked me for a great race, I couldn't present you a better one than what we're going to see. Day 3, teams in the West. Here's how it looks. We've got Cascade CrossFit, CrossFit Dorados, X Factor Black, Tyrannus, and Coeur d'Alene. That's 5th through 9th. All those teams only separated by 22 points, with 2 events that we've seen shake the leaderboard upside down. So I don't know how it will look at the end of day 3, but it's going to look a lot different than what I just read off.
And the Northwest representing strong with holding all 5 spots in the top 5 right now. It's 7 of the top 8 teams. Tyrannus, the only team from Canada West inside the top 8. So looks pretty good for the Northwest.
How will the West be won? It all comes down to day 3, and we'll have wire-to-wire live coverage for you starting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific.